It was simply that, true to his nature, he would lose interest once the initial heat of a new relationship began to cool. He even warned women about it when they first became involved. Sue reasoned that it could well be this candor that had cost Johnny in this instance. Ronnie had apparently bailed before Johnny could tire of her. The irony of that was that it was entirely possible that this was the girl Johnny was not going to tire of. Perhaps, in the long run, they could have made it work. But by preparing the girl for the short run, Johnny had effectively shot himself in the foot, guaranteeing that no long run would be forthcoming. At least that was Sue's theory, and Johnny was clearly not in the mood to discuss it. It was a frustrating feeling for her, but she supposed she simply had to resign herself to the fact that Johnny was going to feel this way until he didn't feel this way anymore. And there wasn't a thing she could do about it. But Susan Richards had never been one for admitting defeat or acknowledging that she was unable to do something about a situation. She wandered thoughtfully through the halls of their headquarters at Four Freedoms Plaza, hoping that maybe she could sick one of the men on Johnny to help get him out of his mood. Ben Grimm was nowhere to be seen. Her son, Franklin, was quietly playing in his room, but somehow she didn't think that a 5-year-old was really going to be the answer to the situation. Maybe her husband... She winced inwardly. Reed Richards had many admirable qualities, and those qualities had helped sustain their love through many a trying time. Deep well springs of emotional understanding, however, were not among those qualities. She hated to admit it, but Johnny would probably have just as much luck discussing the trials and tribulations of romance with a potted plant as he would with Reed. Still, there was no harm in asking Reed if he had any thoughts as to how to address Johnny's current funk, even though the most likely response she would get would be a blank, "Why in God's name are you asking me?" stare. Sue headed to Reed's lab without giving a second thought as to whether he'd be there. Of course he'd be there. He was always there. She looked into his lab. He wasn't there. "Huh," she said, impressed to find that, even after all this time, Reed could still surprise her. "Reed," she called out. She tapped an intercom on the wall, instantly causing her voice to sound in all of Reed's usual haunts. "Reed, where are you?" His voice crackled crisply back. "In my office, dear, on the phone." "Oh, can I come up? I don't want to disturb you." "You won't be. Technically, I'm not speaking to anyone at the moment. They've placed my connection into a sort of indeterminate limbo status." She paused, translating Reed's words into English. "You're on hold, is what you're saying?" There was a brief silence. "I didn't say that." "You did. You just..." Realizing that there was no point in continuing the current conversation, she continued, "I'm coming up." "As you wish. Although, Sue, I've noticed that when we speak, you leave a considerable percentage of your sentences unfinished. Why is that?" "I hadn't..." She smiled. "Chalk up another one." "I'll try to watch that." "And yet you did it just now." "And yet I did. See you in a minute." She walked quickly to the nearest elevator, entered it, and shot up 3 floors to the 75th. She went straight to Reed's study. As she approached, she heard him speaking from within. Apparently, whoever had dared to put Reed Richards on hold had finally deigned to return to the conversation. "I cannot advise against this more strongly than I am right now," Reed was saying. Seated behind his desk, he gestured for Sue to enter. She did so and dropped into the chair opposite him. The cushion immediately conformed to her body with a soft hiss that Ben tended to refer to as the whoopee cushion noise. With all the time they'd been married, she was still surprised by all the little things that Reed's relentless, inventive genius introduced into their lives. "You are tampering with forces that you can barely begin to comprehend, and you're doing it for the worst of reasons. Commercial gain." He was talking over a speakerphone, an appalling...